Hi, I'm Dan Swinsko, physical therapist and strength and conditioning specialist, and I specialize in treating baseball players. What I put together for you here are essentially a top 20 of exercises that you can do anywhere with essentially zero equipment and work on the mobility, stability, and strength that you uniquely need as a baseball player. The idea of this came from the COVID-19, where people are stranded and don't have equipment that they're used to having access to. So this is for all you out there now, and in the future, when the COVID is behind us, there's still going to be times where you may not have access to equipment for any one of a number of reasons. There's a lot you can do if you know how to do it with just body weight in an empty room. I hope you enjoy them. Okay guys, this one for the mobility to help with our stride length is for the muscles on the inside of the leg, which are referred to as the adductor muscle group. So we call this an adductor squat. What you're gonna do is put your foot up onto something where the height of it means in the inside of your thigh, you feel small stretch. If you feel like a lot, it's already too high. So have something small. Notice the inside edge of my foot is resting on there, toe pointing forward. If you put this on something hard, like a wooden desk or whatever, it might hurt. Just throw a towel on top of it and it won't bother your ankle anymore. But the bones of the ankle are gonna have pressure there, so something with a pad will feel better. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna squat. So I'm just gonna squat down. But if I come right up there, I didn't get all my motion. So I'm gonna squat down and just kind of wait to get to the full depth of what I have. And then I'm gonna make that foot, I'm actively pushing that foot down into the table, and then I'm gonna come up. The reason I do that is the squat, and you can even exaggerate with your breath, and get down there. While I'm down here now, I've got length that I didn't have before. Now I want to use it. So I'm going to push down for a few seconds and then come up. We usually do like 5 reps. So get down there, get down there, get down there. My arms in front of me are a counterbalance. And then when I really feel like as far as I go, I'm putting energy down into the inside of my foot. My leg is going like that for a couple seconds, then I come up. Remember, this is not your strength drill, this is a mobility drill. But when we do mobility correctly, we use that newly gained range of motion at the end of range.
This is going to be what we call an adductor shootout. Again, inner thigh muscles are the adductors. Points to note, this knee is locked out straight, that foot is flat, toes are pointing forward. If you've had a bunch of ankle sprains in the past, this may feel like a big stretch at your ankle. You need that then. Ankle mobility is very important for pitching, believe it or not. So foot flat, toes forward, knee straight. Then I'm just gonna rock back as far as I go. Now I have some issues with my knee, so I'm not gonna rock back very far. I'm not stopping short on purpose, it's just all that I have. You'll probably go further than me. So I'm gonna get down, and then like before, cycle my breath, get a little further, and then like before, I'm pushing my foot down into the ground to own that range of motion. And I'll probably do 3, 4, 5 of those. On the last one, I'm gonna add something. That's a little T-spine rotation. So let's say this is my last one. I rock back, I sink, get a little deeper, and now I'm gonna get that nice T-spine rotation at the same time. So we call those adductor shootouts. This next one is called half kneeling rainbow. This does a really good job of helping you get that dissociation of your hips and your shoulders like you have to do when you throw. I'm showing you this side. Obviously you would do both sides. Don't expect both sides to match. One side's likely to be tighter. Spend more time on the tighter side. So when we get into half kneeling, we want a vertical shin. So if I'm here, I got my foot tucked under, that's gonna throw things off. I want my shin bone relatively straight up and down. The back foot's gonna be loaded on toes. The hand over here is gonna be, I call it my burglar alarm. I'm gonna put my hand right there because as I start to do the drill, this knee's gonna wanna collapse in, and I don't wanna train with my knee collapsing in. So this hand is gonna be on the inside of my knee as a sensor, but also as a barricade. So when I feel it start to do that, I'm just gonna push back and not let it, so that's gonna help me open up. So what we do with our other arm is we call it make it long. So I'm gonna be like this. Notice I'm not lunging, I'm reaching. That will create some fascial restrictions for you that you're gonna loosen up when we do the drill. You'll feel it when you do it. So one hand here kind of blocking, long, and now the rainbow is that I'm just gonna raise my arm up and over, staying on plane as best I can, staying long the whole time as best I can, and then I'm gonna come back. My arm is long, I'm staying on plane as best I can, and I come back through there. Please note that middle third zone there is really about your body turning, not your arm. So when I get somebody to this position, I really don't want to see their arm do anything. I want to see their chest, their torso rotate and really work to get that turn. So when I go from here to here, this is the hardest part of the whole thing. I'm working hard to get this position, and then my arm will finish the drill. You'll feel it when you try it. Of course, do both sides. If one side's tighter, spend a little more on that side. This is the half kneeling rainbow. Okay guys, here's another good mobility drill that gets a lot of things. It's similar to a Spider-Man stretch you may have tried. We just call it lunge, elbow, sky. So lunge is, like you might imagine, going to be a forward lunge, but exaggeratedly long. So I'm not lunging like if I have dumbbells, I'm lunging for mobility. So it's really long and low. And then once I get there, I can kind of hold the stretch as long as I want. It feels good. I'm going to allow my back knee to touch. Then my elbow is going to touch the instep there, or try to. Some people can't. So then my elbow goes there, and then I put my hand down, and now I turn through here as best I can, and then I'll take my next step. I'll just come in place here, lunge, then elbow and sky. There you go, lunge, elbow. Okay guys, another common area that's tight in ball players is the front of the forearm. This is an area that gets tight, not just with throwing, but all the weight room work and the gripping. And then when you're not in the weight room, texting and using computers, that's another common way people get tight. So we're gonna use the floor in a hands and knees position. Depending on how tight you are will determine where you start. So if you're here and you feel a big stretch already with your fingers pointing forward, this is where it is, but no, this is pretty doggone restrictive. That's where you feel a stretch. But what you can do is, you'll see in a few minutes, is you're gonna be rocking from here. If this doesn't feel like a stretch, try that. If that doesn't feel a stretch, this is actually where we want you for this drill. So if you're here and you feel a stretch, but it's a little strong, if you walk your knees towards your hands, it will soften it. If you wanna feel a little more, you can walk your knees backwards, that'll strengthen it, or you can be square and try to bend your elbows. And this is a great way of getting a forearm stretch that should be kind to your wrist joint and to your forearm. If you don't feel anything, you don't need it. But if you feel a lot, this is a good one to use. Okay guys, another good mobility drill that, again, assuming you don't have anything at home, is what would be a kettlebell windmill. I'm going to show like the kettlebell would have been in my right hand, but it's a good mobility drill for a lot of people, even empty-handed. So the setup is this: if you stand with your feet the width of you, and then turn your feet at a 45-degree angle, and then get into this back hip. For those of you who might remember Elvis Presley, we call this our tribute to Elvis. So you just do a little Elvis right there. This hand is going to be at the flat of your hand, back of your hand rather, on the inside of your thigh. This is the hand that's in the air. This is the hand that would have the kettlebell. So if I have a bell, I'd press it, then put this hand here. Now my eyes are going to be on my pretend kettlebell, so I'll be looking up. I'm going to hinge into this back hip. My body weight's going that way. I'm going to have way more weight on this trailing side than my lead side. And then I'm going to open up through here. So kettlebell in the air, back of my hand here, weight shifted there. Now I'm just thinking about turning my chest to the right, shifting my weight into my right butt. And when I get to my shoe, I'm done. The way I come up is I think about coming straight up through my hand and simultaneously, energy through my hand, slide my hips over. So here, Elvis, here, just like that. If that feels like a good stretch to you somewhere in your body, it's a good stretch for you. If you feel a whole lot of nothing, then you don't need it, so don't worry about it. Okay guys, here's another good lower body mobility drill. It gets three things at once, so we just call it front, back, side. So you can get muscles on the front, on the back, and on the side of your hips. So hip flexor is the one on the front. There's actually 8 of them. We're gonna get some of them with this. Half kneeling is your setup. Remember we talked before, half kneeling, you want a vertical shin, and you want the back foot loaded on a toe. And I'm going to squeeze this cheek, lock down my lats, tighten my abs, and I feel a great stretch right there. That's front, okay? Back is gonna refer to essentially your hamstring. So all I'm gonna do is straighten out my other leg, pull up on my toe, and hinge. So I'm feeling there. I'm not gonna round, because that'll be my back. I don't wanna stretch my back, I wanna stretch my hamstring. So this knee is locked, those toes are up, and I hinge, and I feel that stretch there. The side is basically butt cheek. So what we do is you take the leg that was in front, cross it over behind you, hands come to the floor. So you go from this half kneeling to this, to now this, and you essentially reach that trailing leg back and at an angle that feels right for you. So some people are just gonna reach back straight. Some people are gonna go across. Wherever the tension feels best to you, there's no wrong answer. So I like it more at an angle like this, and I feel a great stretch through there, and then I can reach through here, and voila, front, back, inside. Okay guys, the next thing we're gonna do is a style of goblet squat for mobility. Now you've probably done a goblet squat in the weight room where you take a dumbbell sideways or hold a kettlebell by the horns and drop down and come up like that. That's the same move we're gonna do more or less, but we're doing this for mobility now because remember, we're assuming you are empty-handed, you have nothing, you're on COVID crisis on an island, right? So we don't have any stuff now, so for mobility what we're gonna do is hold our hands together. So I'm gonna get my squat stance with my hands together, I'm gonna come down like this with my elbows inside my knees. Step one, I'm gonna cycle a breath because I get a little more depth on an exhale. After I cycle my breath, my hands are together, I'm gonna use my elbows and pry my knees apart. Feels great. I usually find a way, I don't know why, to just sort of wiggle a little bit when I do this. You don't have to, but if it feels good to you too, go ahead. And then after I do that, I'm gonna actively, internally and externally rotate my thighs, and we call this butterfly wings. And it just, again, feels really good, just a way to use that newly gained range of motion. And then I just come straight up. Now, if when you come up, it's just kind of a miserable experience and kind of sucks, you were down there longer than your body was accustomed to. So you just kind of pace yourself with starting with one, meaning come straight down, cycle one breath. One pry, one butterfly wing, and then come up. Based on how that feels to you, you can determine how many more of those you want to do. But even so, I usually don't spend more than about 30 seconds per rep. So try that. It should really open up your hips. And in fact, if in the past in the weight room, when you're squatting, you've had some pinching problem with your hip, you may find this clears that up. So next time you go in the weight room to lift and you're going to squat, try this first and see if it doesn't clean that problem. Wall slide drill, here's what we're going to do. If you're a right-hander, your right toe will touch. If you're a left, your left toe will touch. The other one's gonna be close. I'm a righty, so my right foot touches, my left toe's about that far from the wall. I need to neutralize here. A lot of you are gonna wanna be here just like me, but we're not supposed to be. So we're gonna neutralize and neutralize. Then we've got our arms on the wall in the shape of the letter V with our pinkies. Notice I'm wider than I am. There's importance there because the muscle we're targeting runs at this same angle. So then what I'm gonna do is I'm going to shrug up as high as I can, and then from there lift off without moving my body, put them back, and then I'm going to exhale with all I got, and then slide down. Here's why we do that. To throw, you're in an overhead position. Overhead position requires the socket of the ball and socket to be positioned in such a way that there's no scraping or impingement. You may have heard those terms. So most of the time people want to blame the rotator cuff, but I think in reality, shoulder blade component is a bigger piece. This does a great job for that, again, using nothing. So slide it up as hard as as high as you can without leaning in, okay? And then when you lift off, feel that it's your shoulder blade posteriorly tilting, not your body backward bending. That's a cheat. The reason we exhale is when we exhale, the oblique abdominals pull the rib cage down. So when my arm is here and I exhale, that kind of stretches. So rather than stretching my arm up, I stretch my ribs down. Essentially what it means is any amount that I cheated with to get up there, I take away by my forceful exhale. So I was talking to you, I didn't get the smooth version of how it would be, but now I'm going to show you without talking to you what one rep will look like. It's a lot of work, but it's really good work and it's important work. Don't be surprised if you feel a little crampy in that mid-back area. Those are your lower trap muscles. They're very important for every overhead athlete. If you feel nothing with this, you are kicking ass. But if you feel something with this, you should probably do it. Guys, I don't need to tell you that as a pitcher, your entire life is on your front leg when you come through to make a throw. So stability on that lead leg is hugely important. Here's an easy drill you can do. You just need to stand up on something, a little step, a stair, stack of books, your friend, I don't care. Just step up. This is 6 inches in height. It doesn't have to be much. And keep in mind, this is not a drill you do a PR with. So if you can do 6 inches, you do 10, you do 20, you jump off the roof, it'll get crazy at a certain point. You just need to have a little bit of downward momentum and a little bit of forward momentum. So I wouldn't go much higher than this, maybe 12 inches max, if you earn the right to get there by being successful at 4, 6, 8, 10, okay? So from 6 inches, I'm gonna balance on my right. My left leg is my lead leg. I'm just gonna take a tiny little hop and try to land that. That was medium, not so good. Let's try another. Better. See all these little wiggles? I'm not gonna let go of this position until those wiggles stop. That we call that owning it. So I'm gonna come off, I'm gonna land, and once I own it, I will start my next rep. Now I own it. Now I own it. Just like that. If you're wiggling everywhere, then just wiggle until the wiggles stop. Reestablish that control, and that will help you a lot when you're in this position, which, by the way, there's 2 most common positions where injuries happen. It tends to be at maximum layback and right after ball release. This is gonna help you in that one. Okay guys, I'm sure you recognize that push-ups are a terrific exercise. They're especially good as an alternative for that push strength that a pitcher needs without using a bench press. We're not a big fan of the bench press because when you lock down to a bench press, you're locking down your shoulder blade, and when you throw, that shoulder blade needs to be able to move. So when you load a push-up one way or another, that is kind of a nice way to allow yourself resisted push strength rather than just body weight, and have shoulder blades free to move. A variation of that is to use a slider. So I'm gonna use a slider, assuming you don't have one, a paper plate, not the like 500 for 99 cent kind of paper plate, but like the 10 for $1 paper plate that have a little glaze on them, they slide. Or if you have a plastic plate, that'll slide pretty well too. So I'm gonna use my slider, and so I'm gonna get in a push-up position, and then just like that. It's a wonderful change, of course, do both arms. Wonderful challenge rather for stability into the arm and core, and get some upper body strength. Okay guys, strength in the legs is super important. I think you guys probably recognize that, and even more so one leg at a time. So if we're in the weight room, we're doing squats, that's fine for big loads, but you still have to go single leg with your strength. Again, we're assuming you're empty-headed, so what do? If you have a chair, or if you're really good, you don't need a chair, I need a chair, or something lower, you can do what's called a pistol squat. I don't know why it's called that, I'm assuming because one leg is shot out in front of you, but this is what they're called. I have the chair there particularly for beginners, because if something goes south, the chair just catches you. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get my balance, get solid here, own the position before you start, and then once you own it, just squat down and up to and from the chair, or something lower than that if you're up to it. And you don't have to do it, you can kind of see what I'm able to do here. You can kind of do that in air, but if you fall, something bad can happen. The last thing you want to do is have to report an injury because you were training and goofed off. So have something there for a landing spot, make it a challenge that's height for you. Reps is like 5 to 10. Okay guys, an exercise you may or may not have heard of before is called the Turkish get-up. Now, Turkish get-up, once you learn it, is normally loaded with a kettlebell because it's a terrific way of training a lot of things. We're going to assume you don't have a kettlebell because we're in COVID isolation on an island with nothing. So why would we do that empty-handed? Well, if you've never learned it, you're going to probably coordinate and control a few things. If you've learned it, you thought you kind of sucked at it, we're still going to teach you how to control a few things. So here's the reason I like it. Is because of a concept in anatomy called the cross-body pattern. And let me just show you with walking. If you saw someone walking like this, you would recognize that looked very wrong. People walk like this. People punch like that, throw like that. Everything we do, run, walk, etc., is where one arm links up and connects with a leg on the opposite side. And if you look at an anatomy book, you'll see the anatomy of our body, front, side, and back, lines up that way. It's how we're meant to move. So the Turkish get-up, the reason I like that is it emphasizes that cross-body connection. So the axis that I'll be rotating around is going to be from my left hip to my right shoulder. The muscles that move me around that axis are from my left shoulder to my right hip, and it'll be the other way around like this. So that's why I want to do both sides. The other thing I like about it, aside from doing that, is it really helps with some shoulder stability because I'm going to be weight bearing on that one hand. When I get to the middle position, it works on some T-spine mobility. And remember, your T-spine is what delivers your arm. So these are all really important physical attributes you're going to need to be successful as a pitcher or as a position player for that matter, but definitely for pitchers. So how it starts is this. I'm going to be here. This is my pretend kettlebell, and I'm going to roll up to my elbow. I need you to take a look at my right shoulder because I'm in a good position now. Some of you might look like this. And when I'm here, I'm just putting stress on my biceps tendon and my labrum. Who wants to do that? None of you. So I'm going to push the earth away, and that's how I prevent that from happening. So I'm not going to have a lazy right shoulder. I have an active right shoulder. And now my fingers are pointing that way. When I come up to the next position, my fingers are going to point back. So what I tell people is just look where your elbow is and put your hand where your elbow used to be when you come up. Again, I'm not going to be here putting that stress on my shoulder. I'm preventing my labral problem by doing that. This is a great drill for baseball players because I need you to get resiliency in preventing those forces because those are the exact same forces at the end of layback. And if you don't control the end of layback very well, the ball slides forward in the socket, puts tension on your biceps and labral tear. If you've had anterior shoulder pain, that's probably you. So this is a good drill for you. It doesn't look like a shoulder exercise necessarily, but it's an awesome one. So again, here's my setup position, come up to my elbow, good shoulder position, come up to my hand, and then I bridge up, and I get this leg underneath me such that my hand, my knee, and my ankle are more or less in line with one another, and then my down arm through my T-spine to my up arm are more or less in line with each other. Now I have to let go of the ground. So what I'm going to do is sort of shift my weight over here, again, assuming there's a weight in my hand, shift the weight over here, and now I'm up. From here, I can either windshield wiper that foot or bring this one in line with here. And then stand up, and now I'm going to reverse it. I'm going to take a step back. I'm going to then find my hip. I'm going to use my hand and physically touch my hip to move it over. So that's a hip hinge. It's just a lateral hip hinge. So I'm going to do that. Put my palm on the ground, not my fingers, but my palm, and then shoot this leg back through. Now I'm being mindful of my shoulder again, mindful of my shoulder, mindful of my shoulder. I want to remark that from here to here, I need to move my body weight that way. So if my right arm is on the ground, I'm making a point of moving my body weight way over here to the left. What I'm not doing is pulling my arm out and just dropping or sliding my arm. That doesn't require motor control. For me to be here to there requires these muscles to control me along that axis. Again, cross-body pattern. So even though my hand is empty, there's a lot of good that can come from a Turkish get-up. Enjoy. Okay guys, this next exercise we call a floor jack. A floor jack is very important for some of the important shoulder blade muscles that we have, in particular one called the serratus anterior. If you're interested, it doesn't really matter, but it's going to give you that ability to have stability when your arm comes forward and up, and again, in throwing sports, that's all the time. So it's based on a push-up position, so I'm going to get into a push-up position. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop one hand, and then I'm going to aim this shoulder towards the ground and then towards the ceiling. Those are floor jacks. This is another exercise thinking about single leg strength in a pattern you would use as a pitcher. So we showed you the one where you just drop off from a step. This is similar to that, but we're going to be using two legs together. We call them scissor jumps. So what you're going to do is get low, jump up, and then switch, and just alternate like that. Probably 5 or so per side is plenty. Keep in mind the energy systems is a thought, meaning how long does one play last in baseball? Not very long usually. So you need to have little bouts a lot, just like think about throwing 100 pitches. It's a little bout, one at a time, but there's a lot of them. So you gotta have endurance over that power. So this is like that. One thing you can do to vary it, if you're one of those guys that tends to fall off balance a lot as you deliver your throw, is that you can stick it. And you can, if you have a training partner, you can make it random. So like what I'll do is this. 1, 2, stick. And I'm trying to stick this landing. 1, 2, stick. And now I'm sticking the landing on the other side. You want to be really sticky. You don't want to be really wobbly. Just like with the other exercise, it's about getting strength with control. Strength without a control is like driving a fast car on ice. It just doesn't get you very much. So get that control so you can use the power that you have. Okay guys, we're going to use a chair or a park bench or whatever you have for behind you. My back foot is on my laces. This needs to be on something comfortable. It's amazing how often people say they don't like doing this exercise, not because of the exercise itself, but because of the setup position is uncomfortable. Have a towel or a hoodie or something underneath your foot so the bones of your foot aren't getting smashed on something hard. So I'm gonna have 1 foot rear elevated right there, and then this foot, you have to determine where it's gonna be. Most people guess too close to the chair. So I'm gonna come out a little bit further than I think I should, and you'll have a good sense of that if when you come down, you feel a hint of a stretch there, but not like a crazy stretch. And then you just kind of make a note of where that is. Sometimes a lot of people find a way to mark on the ground, a little chalk tape, put a plate there. So you have an idea when you come back to it, you can put your foot confidently on the ground, get that trail foot up and just go. You don't want it to be a big to-do to get set up. So RFE squats, rear foot elevated, sometimes called Bulgarian split squats, call it what you want, is simply a single leg squat with the rear foot behind you. How we're gonna make that a little better is we're gonna reach. So I'm gonna squat and reach. And the reason we like this is, again, it's creating sort of that momentum situation that you have to control as a pitcher. So I'm here with my lead leg, right-handed thrower, and I'm going to squat and reach. Squat and reach. Nothing wrong with doing both sides. You want to have some symmetry in your body. Maybe spend a little more time with your dominant side in front. Okay guys, this is another exercise you can use with an empty room. It's a very tricky exercise. It doesn't look like much until you try it. Then you can feel that, oh my goodness, there's a lot. This is for the muscles on the back of your arm, shoulder blade, and upper back. So you're going to be in your kind of 90-90 throwing position, or in the golf world, we call that the waiter's tray position. So I'm going to lie on my back and get my arms there, okay? My knees are up, and I want my knees as close to my face as I can have them without literally coming off the ground. What you don't want is to be here. The reason you don't want that is you're going to be twisting through your lumbar spine, and it's likely you'll have complaints. Bring your knees up, that essentially locks out your lumbar spine, and you'll be rotating through your torso. That's where you should rotate. So I'm going to be here. I'm going to connect my legs together as one unit. I've got my arms in the sort of that 90-90 position, holding my legs together. Now I'm going to start to roll my legs this way. But what you can't see is that at the same time, I'm pushing down into the ground as hard as I can. So I'm anchoring that right arm down to the ground, working really hard to hold the right arm down, working really hard to hold the two legs together, and I'm bringing my torso to the left, working really hard to push the right arm down into the ground and go as far as I can. As soon as my right shoulder blade comes up, I'm done. Or if I can get to the ground, which I can kind of almost do, there I got it. Now I can come back. And that was only one. Do both sides, of course. It's tricky hard, great for mobility and stability at the same time. What you need is a thrower. Okay guys, another great drilling we can do with nothing that's gonna help us as throwers is to work on that ability for our hips and our shoulders to dissociate. Believe it or not, the most common link between people having ulnar collateral Tommy John issues is the inability to get separation of hips and shoulders. So your arm ends up overworking essentially because the rest of your body didn't work as well as it could have. This is a great drill to help reestablish that or get it for the first time if you've never had it. We just call them skier jumps, and we'll have people for preseason skiing do this all the time. What we do differently for you as a thrower is what you do with your arms. So I'm gonna have you think of your arms being straight, and I need you to rigidly hold them there. It's great if you're on a field where you can see a line. So if the foul line is right there, I'm standing on the foul line, my arms are gonna be parallel to that. Then I'm gonna jump and keep my legs in the same plane and turn them, and then turn them. So if I start standing on the line when I jump, one foot will be over the line forwards, the other foot will be over the line backwards, and then when I jump again, the feet will switch. But what I'm trying to do the whole time is to keep my upper body square. So it's, sometimes people get a little bit of this. I even started to do that. I could feel it. I don't know if you can see it. Think about your belly button. I'm just going to think about my belly button going right, left, left, right. So here I am thinking about belly button. I don't know if those felt better or looked better rather, but they felt a little better. But that's the concept. Allow your body to have power and ballistic rotation with one half of your body different than the other half. Okay guys, we've been pretending like we have nothing, but all I need from you is a step. This is 18 inches. If you have a step that's maybe knee height-ish, not much more than that hopefully, you're in a good place. You can use a standard chair, assuming it's solid enough for you to step up to. If you don't have it, you can do without this exercise. There's a lot of similarities, some of the ones you've seen with me already. But we call it a step up with a kick over. And what it means is I'm gonna step up and then kick over or rotate that way, with the idea that I have to control this rotational momentum on my front leg and then come back down. Knowing what to think is important, I'm thinking about this leg, not this one. So I want to think about this foot driving down into the ground, just like if you're doing a squat or a deadlift, you're thinking about pushing the earth away from you. So now I'm still thinking about pushing the earth away from me, okay? So when I do it, I'm going to step up, kick over, come back with control, and I'm down. Step up, kick over. You want to have control like that. If somewhere in the process you lose your balance, try to capture your balance before you keep moving. So if I come up and I'm whoa, 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 and I never got a chance to kick over, correct it or put your foot down if you have to, reset, do the kick over, and then come down. Okay guys, this is another variation of a push-up. We've talked before about the push-up with the slider and with the floor jacks, how important it is to have horizontal push strength, but again, we can't use a weight room right now. The two ways you can really make a muscle adapt to something with resistance is how much physical load it has to overcome, which means weights, or how fast it has to apply load. That's what this is going to do. This is a ballistic style of a push-up where you're just going back and forth over the line. The reason I like this so much is it emphasizes that quality of what we have here, that connection between the arm and the abs. When you deliver a pitch, as you're coming through and you're kind of all stacked up in that middle position, your abs are working really powerfully because your momentum wants your hand to go back that way. So you just started this, and that's how your hand goes back so far, is it lays back because you've got one thing going one direction, the other going the other, and then it whips through with that momentum. That is made by this. So when your abs get tired, your ball ends up. Leaving a ball high in the zone is not usually a good thing. So it will affect performance negatively, but also what happens when your abs start to get more tired is now then if this lets go, this and this experience greater stress. And obviously we don't want that. So here's an awesome way, empty room, to work on that ability to get more stability, strength in the connection between your shoulder and your abs. You know our favorite saying, you can't fire a cannon from a canoe. This trains you to be more like a battleship. So this is what it looks like. I'm gonna get in a push-up position, then I'm gonna go down and push off hard enough that I end up on the other side of the line. See how we do. Not too bad for an old guy. The idea is that when you land, you don't lose it, okay? So you're maintaining that connection and you're maintaining that plank as you go back and forth. You might not be able to do one yet, I have no idea. It's okay if you can or can't. The idea though is that you're trying to. If it's truly ugly and you can't, then what I would suggest is you get into a push-up position and just go to clap. So you come down and do that and work on those clap push-ups. They're still very ballistic and they're still challenging, just not as much of a challenge. So get a few of those under your belt, and then after a while, those will come to you no problem.